NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. We're here at PJ's on Airline Highway, right across the street from Rouse's. Make sure you come through here, check them out. They got a great store, great coffee. Get your day every started with them. And, of course, we are in the mobile Ochsner Health Podcast Studio. Check them out for all of your healthcare needs. And stay on top of that. That's important to stay on top of. And if you need a new car, check out my guy, Matt Bowers. One of his many locations throughout the Gulf Coast region. Great cars, great customer care, great prices, great service, best car buying experience that you can have. Check him out at one of his many locations. We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to get you set up going into next week, week 1 of the NFL season. We're going to talk about some of the injured guys that have come back from injury and what they can be expected to add immediately or at what point in the season. So stick around for that and much more after this quick word from our sponsors. Ochsner Health inspires healthier lives and stronger communities through a combination of standard-setting expertise, quality, and connection not found anywhere else in the region. To learn more about how Ochsner empowers people to get well and stay well, visit ochsner.org. Long live you. The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out.
Score big with Saints Score. Win up to $100,000. Enter the second chance drawings for cool Saints prize packages. Play Saints Score scratch-offs from the lottery.
NewOrleans.Football is proudly sponsored by Urban South Brewery, the makers of Paradise Park Lager. I love supporting local breweries, and when looking for a refreshing, easy drinking beer, I always recommend Paradise Park. In fact, I think it might be the best game day beer out there. If you want something a little lighter, try Paradise Light. It's everything I love about Paradise Park with just 96 calories and 2.6 carbs. And if you're looking for a family-friendly place to watch the game, I'd recommend Urban South's Tap Room in the Lower Garden District. They've got 15 TVs, 30 unique beers on tap, and mouth-watering urban smash burgers. The whole family will want to make Urban South their new living room because at Urban South, they take laid back seriously. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans, specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. Their agents are born and raised in the area and understand our community's unique needs and the homeowners insurance crisis our residents are currently in. At Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. They know your time is valuable, which is why they work diligently to provide you with the quotes as soon as possible. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. When we couldn't find someone to insure our house because of the big oak tree growing over top, Chabert worked until they found someone that would work with us and give us the protection that we need to feel safe in our new home. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Chabert. That's 504-326-6526. Chabert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, your local insurance experts. Hard Hide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com. All right, let's get into the show.
Welcome into this episode of the NewOrleans.Football show here at the mobile Ochsner Health Podcast Studio in PJ's Coffee at 2600 Airline Drive. It is now time for our first segment presented by Urban South. A lot of good injury news this week. Rashid Shaheed came back, Marshon Lattimore came back, and Kool-Aid McKinstry. Also, Mason Tipton was seen at practice. Do we feel good about these injuries, and how can this help the team going into Week 1 against Carolina?
More good players, more good players. Makes you feel a lot better about them, actually. I mean, it at least takes the doubt out of it. I never had any doubt that Marshon was going to be ready on Monday. Like, I knew Marshon was going to be ready on Monday. Like, no one had to tell me that. I knew it. Like, I just –
Facts.
Oh, hey, look at that. Look at that. You know, like, I just knew he was going to be out there once camp was over. It just kind of felt like that was how that was going to go. Seeing Shaheed's good, I think that's important. They need to get him going as soon as possible. You know, I'm not expecting a lot from Kool-Aid early in the season. I just don't know what to expect. When we seen him, it looked like he was a little bit, you know, still figuring some stuff out. Maybe that clicks really quick. I have no idea what to make of how they're going to use Tipton. I'm kind of excited to see if he's part of that picture, if he's just being protected or whatever, or maybe that's a later in the season thing. But definitely feel better about all those guys being back.
Yeah, Marshon and Shaheed are two of the big ones. I mean, they've got about 8 big ones on this team. And I was starting to wane a little bit. Like, my 8-9 prediction, did I feel worse about the team after training camp or not? Like, that was a boon to see those guys back out there. And remember, like, we spend so much time analyzing, especially when they're doing 53-man cut-down day, the bottom half of the roster, the depth on the roster. But when you see 2 of their 10 best players out there and you're like, all right, they look like they're going to be good to go. Yeah. Like, I think Marshon is whether Marshon plays or not and is close to 100% or not is a 1-win difference for me. There's not a lot of guys that alone are a 1-win difference for me, and Marshon's one of them. So seeing him back out there 2 weeks before the season opener, seeing Shaheed back out there, I think it was one of the most positive developments that we've seen from this team in weeks.
I would love to see a season where Marshon is just on the ramp the whole entire time, though. Like, he's going to show up and just play and be good because he can just show up and play and be good. But, like, what would it look like if he was actually 17 weeks locked in, I want to be the greatest of all time? Like, could he be? Like, he really has that kind of talent that he could put himself in that conversation, I think. I mean, he's getting a little bit older now, so, like, maybe the ship's sailing on that and sunset's set. But, like, you know, previously, man, he could have. And, like, it's just I don't know that we're ever going to see peak Marshon athleticism with – peak Marshon buy-in. It's never going to happen. It's over.
I was disappointed. I mean, it was the story I wrote as the preview to training camp. I bought into a little of the things he was saying in minicamp, where he was saying, I know that people are taking me off their lists, and I've been out of sight, out of mind for 2 years, and it's up to me to remind everyone who I am. And I'm like, maybe we're going to get motivated all in Marshon, and maybe that would be huge for the Saints. And I mean, we don't know exactly what was going on with training camp, if he took longer than he needed to, how hurt he was, if he's disenchanted at all. But that's why it felt so good to see him back out there. But you're absolutely right. It's a big disappointment that he wasn't like – I mean, the way I felt about Chase Young, like not that there was ever any question about Chase Young's commitment, but just like how much Chase Young are the Saints going to get? When we saw him out there the first day of camp, and we've seen him out there every day since, just kind of like dominating, makes you feel way better. I wish we had that same vibe around Marshon.
Like, I think Marshon can show up and play and still be a top 10 corner this year. Like, and he could look great. He could have a great season. He could be an all-pro. Like, it's just – I feel like Marshon could have been number 1 for the last 7 years. And it's just never kind of come together like that. And there were, like, signs here and there, like, hey, going to buy in. Like, I want to do this. I want to do that. Like, last year coming to the season, it was the same thing. he told me, like, I want to be a Hall of Famer. And I was like, all right. And then, you know, he kind of was bought in until the injury. But it's just kind of, it's never quite met. And it's never gonna. Like, the ship is, like I said, I still think he can be a top 10 corner, top 5 corner, whatever. It's just those two points on the axis. Just there's not going to be like an intersection, and if there has been, it's been fleeting.
I think it's very interesting to see Marshon come back to this point and then have to face the amount of talent that he's going to have to face early on in the season. He has to go against CeeDee Lamb, who got paid by Dallas. He has to face A.J. Brown.
And Devontae Smith.
Yeah, Devontae Smith. He has to face a whole lot of top-tier talent in the league to be able to bolster his point of being, you know, one of the best in the league early. He gets the chance to do it. But a player that, you know, we saved to kind of talk about in this next segment presented by the Louisiana Lottery is Rashid Shaheed. He was able to come back this week. He looked fast. Mike, you had an article detailing the fantasy outlook on him. Do you think he'll take a leap from this season, and how much do you expect him to take a leap this season?
Yeah, he was going to be sort of my top fantasy recommendation going into this summer because of what I think this offense could do for him and the fact that they didn't really add other people, you know, as number 2/3 receivers on this team and pass catchers. You're a little hesitant when you see him miss the first 2 preseason games with a hamstring injury, the 3rd preseason game with a foot injury, but he looked fast out there on the practice field. He was doing everything we saw. He said he's 100%, so I feel good about him again. And the crux of that article is, you might take Rashid Shaheed in a fantasy league just based on what he's done in the past, which is the Louisiana lottery ticket that he might have 2 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game. But I'm really, if everything we're hearing about this offense is true, it's based on, we're not going to tell you what we're doing based on who's on the field. Yeah. These guys will be on the field all the time. If Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave can prove they can be adequate blockers, they're going to be on the field all the time. They're going to be on the field for run plays. They're going to be on the field for pass plays. They're going to be getting those quick passes with yards after catch. As Shaheed says, short level, medium level, and deep opportunities. His volume should increase. His easy catches should increase. It's true for both Olave and Shaheed. And, there's really a big opportunity. He's got to prove he can do it. But there's really a big opportunity for him to be a quote-unquote true number 2 receiver in this offense.
Yeah, I definitely for him, I think they'll use him more creatively, like that type of player. They move him around a lot. They do a lot of different things. And every one of these offenses, like that type of player is often the weapon. Shaheed actually had a lot more – they overdosed on posts with him, but he actually had a lot more route distribution than Olave. The bulk of Olave's routes the last few years, they're the hardest routes to get open on. It's hitches and outs against man coverage. They use him on those all the time. I think if they put him at flanker and motioned him and got him into motion a little bit, you get him against more zone looks and get him off man a little bit. That's something they can do with Olave, and I think they will. But, yeah, I think both these guys, it should just be easier to get the ball in a lot more spaces. And I think especially with Shaheed, we're going to see a lot more creativity.
Well, it was Chris Olave who said he gets to run real routes now. It was kind of a slip, but then he explained it. He's like, no, with Shaheed, remember he missed his whole rookie season because he was coming back from the ACL tear at Weber State. So his preseason was kind of like what Kendry Miller's doing now, rehabbing off to the side, and then he's available for week 6, and they're like, what are 5 plays we can put in the game plan for Shaheed? That was basically his rookie season. Last year, obviously, he had a chance to learn the whole offense more, but he was sort of a gadget player for the first half of his career, and now, like everyone else in this offense, he's learned it from the ground up, and he's been, as they've installed this offense, he's been on the field with the ones for every day of installation. So
I think he needs to earn it, though, too.
Yeah, no question.
His route running needs to be a little bit better. He missed some time. I thought it was interesting. I think USDA about it, and he was like, well, if he earns it, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that it just needs to stay sharp, and he needs to stay on top of, all the details. There's times on some of these where you can see, if you're, really in the film, you can see he's, running a route the wrong way, but, it'll still work because. But, this offense is a lot more precision-based. You're taking your drops are synced with your progression. If you're not where you're supposed to be, it's just blowing by you. They aren't waiting on it they might have before. So you really have to be more timing-based. So he needs to be a lot more precise than he's been. I think he will be. But I thought that DA comment was a little bit keeping the pressure on him a little bit, which I believe he needs.
Well, look, last year, the disconnect between Derek Carr and Chris Olave got a ton of attention.
It really
but
did.
Some of the high-profile moments were a disconnect between Carr and Rashid Shaheed. 2 that come to mind are the Houston game where I think Shaheed turns left and Carr throws right in the end zone. Yeah. And then there was an interception when Carr was backed up against his own end zone, maybe even a week later, where Shaheed didn't get to a spot and it bounced off Shaheed's hand. It turned into an interception. And, we heard privately that, Shaheed wasn't where he was expected to be. And now that's not just an indictment on Shaheed. It's just a reminder that he's an undrafted guy who hasn't had a ton of training. And that's why I say I think the fact that they're all learning this offense together at the same time and he's been there from the beginning, I think he's going to be – and he even agreed. He said he's learned – the proper technique on routes more than he's ever learned before.
Yeah. Very excited to see. I know we're all excited to see his development in year 3 and to see where he can go in this offense. But Shaheed was primarily a kick returner for this team. He was the go-to kick returner as the speed guy. Our next segment presented by Shawbear Insurance, the Earhart Agency. Yesterday, Dennis Allen said that the Saints did not end up signing Kene Nwangwu. Nwangwu. That's what I'm going to go with as the pronunciation. I looked it up and I spelled it out phonetically. Nwangwu. They did not sign Kene Nwangwu. He failed his physical. Are the Saints okay with what they got?
What's really interesting to me is I did not consider him a running back necessarily. No. And even when he played for Clint Kubiak in Minnesota in 21, he had a career-high 13 carries. So I don't think he was going to be a big part of this offense. But they kind of accidentally revealed Jordan Mims was getting cut to make room for this guy. And he was going to, I'm sure, come back to the practice squad and maybe be a game day elevation. They kept him on the roster when he failed his physical. But, I mean, it's just obvious, as Nick was already hinting at before, that this team was going to be lookout. They feel like they're missing something in that backfield, I still think. I don't know if the answer exists out there. I think it's going to be Kamara, Jamal Williams, Jordan Mims against Carolina in week 1 and until Kendre Miller comes back. But it lets you know that they feel like there's an element missing, I think.
I don't think he was going to be a huge part of that, though. Yeah. Like, it was like Mims would have been back, and I think Mims would have been up like the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't think that they were looking at him like a problem solver there, but he was a dash of something, yeah. You know, like every now maybe a couple plays or whatever. But I don't think it was a huge thing on that. I think they're okay at returner, though. I don't think this is really, like, I think it was kind of an opportunity. I don't think they were out there like, we have to find a returner. Like, I think it's just, oh, wow, we can have 2 of these guys, and he can add a little bit to the run game, like the fit. So I think that's what they were trying to do with that. I had heard that they did not try to claim anybody else on waivers besides that corner that Pelissero reported about. No claims placed on an offensive lineman or anything like that. So this was kind of the guy that they had the opportunity with. Pulled a hamstring, so it wasn't a major injury. It's just probably, hey, he showed up, he wasn't ready to go, and they moved on. So if he was looked at to be a huge piece of something, they would have just waited it out. Yeah. It was just, okay, opportunity here. Okay, opportunity doesn't actually exist. Move on to something else. Yeah. Kind of a weird situation overall. Minnesota should have marked him as a injury, though. Like, you shouldn't be able to cut somebody and then he shows up and you got an injury. Those surprises aren't supposed to happen.
Yeah, well, that'll take us to our first break. The break is going – after we come back from the break, we're going to continue to detail the signings that the Saints have had and hit the Martin's questions of the day. Keep it locked to NewOrleans.Football.
Total Maintenance is one of the largest locally owned home and commercial service providers in South Louisiana. They were founded in 1980 and serve the greater New Orleans and Baton Rouge markets. And Total Maintenance wants to show some love to our NOF listeners. They have a membership program that gets you 2 tune-up visits for AC and heating, as well as club membership discounts of 15% on all repairs, half off of all diagnostic charges, and 3-year warranties on most repairs for membership clients. This is usually priced at the low price of $24.95 a month per system, but if you tell Total Maintenance that you found them through NOF, they'll lower the price to $20.95 per month per system for as long as you keep the membership active. It will never increase. Total Maintenance has a tune-up special running this summer for $79, down from the normal price of $179. This is a one-time offer for one system only. They also offer a free diagnostic on second opinions on units deemed to be unrepairable, and they offer free estimates for replacements as well as commercial maintenance programs. Services include AC and heating service and replacement, electrical service, plumbing service, as well as generator service and installation. They are Total Maintenance. Find them at tm-ac.com or give them a call at 504-841-3300, or if you're in the Baton Rouge area, 225-480-1000. Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience.
Score big with kickoff combos at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company. Comes with fried shrimp and your choice of soft-shell crab traditional or our famous thin-fried catfish, all served with garlic herb fries, starting at only $10.99. Only at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of stepping into your dream home. At Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, we can help make that dream a reality with a team dedicated to you. When you partner with Jefferson Financial, you do so for the life of the loan. Having a single point of contact when questions arise is invaluable. Our experts are here to guide you every step of the way. There's no better time to invest in your future. Apply online at jeffersonfinancial.org. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Whether you are a local New Orleanian or a fan in town for the game, get your pre- and post-game fired up at Aaron Rose. Local chaos and local love for the black and gold. Wake up and live with daily drink specials, mimosas, screwdrivers, Bloody Marys, and hot or frozen Irish coffees, all just $3 or $4 between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Aaron Rose, half a block from Bourbon Street in the French Quarter, 811 Conti Street.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktails. Wall-to-wall, state-of-the-art TVs mean you'll see every touchdown, Hail Mary, and big turnover in crystal clear HD. Place your bets and feel the thrill of every play with our DraftKings Sportsbook. So come out for game day and let our team make you the MVP. The Queen Casino in Baton Rouge, where every moment is a win.
Welcome back to the Mobile Oshner Health Podcast Studio here at PJ's Coffee on Airline. It is now time for our next segment presented by Aaron Rose. The Saints did end up signing defensive tackle John Ridgeway III, who we spoke to yesterday, and they also made some practice squad additions with LSU product Austin Declan, the offensive tackle, and Trayton Welch. What do we think about these additions, and is this the level of move we should expect throughout the rest of the season? No more like Justin Simmons high-profile type players walking in the building.
Yeah, no more. I mean, there's not going to be a high-profile guy coming out there. That was it. I don't even know who that would be at this point. That would move the needle and actually move the needle on the field. I mean, there's some names out there that I think we're like, oh, they're getting him, and then the reality of it's probably vastly different from what the vision was of the player from 3 years ago. So there's still some names out there, but I don't think anyone that's going to like make a significant difference. Like Bakhtiari would maybe be one, but he's been so vocal about playing on artificial surfaces that I don't see a scenario where he'd want to play half his games on one with the Saints. So I don't see that happening. Ridgeway, interesting player. I think there's probably a little bit of upside there. Not a ton. I think he's probably more of a rotational type player. I don't think he's going to come in and change the reality of your defense or anything like that. But I think it's a good addition for a team at a position where it felt like they were a little bit thin. I think he maybe has a little bit more of a fit than Colin Saunders. I'm going to be curious what this means for Colin Saunders when he gets back from his injury.
It's kind of surprising they didn't put Saunders on IR. I talked to Saunders the other day, and he thinks he might miss 3 weeks. I know you reported something similar to that, too. It's kind of like, I mean, especially now that you have 5 defensive tackles on the roster, you couldn't just set him aside for 4 weeks and let him get fully healthy. That's kind of interesting. So I agree there. It gives them time to look at what else they have before he comes back and decide. Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of with the fan base on the I've come to the disappointed realization that this is all we're down to now at this stage. I mean, I was kind of hoping there was still an offensive tackle behind door number 2. I mean, me and Brandon were looking at the list of the guys who did get claimed on waivers by the Patriots and the Panthers. There was an offensive tackle from the Rams, and there was an offensive tackle from the 49ers. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what you wanted to see. Like, oh, the 49ers' 4th best offensive tackle, he's probably great, you know. And the Saints didn't claim them. We saw Austin Deculus in the locker room. He's a giant. Like, I was like, this guy looks the part. Yeah. But, he's only gotten 1 career start, so he's a depth signing. Ridgeway's a rotational guy. Nwangwu wasn't going to be, he was going to be a role player. I think they're going with what they have at this point. I agree with you. I mean, I guess there's a couple other names on the offensive line. The one that's most interesting to me is DJ Humphries. I mean, he's a really good player if he could get healthy, and obviously that's why he hasn't signed with the team yet. He had some major injury issues. And there's Donovan Smith, who started every game for the Super Bowl winning Chiefs last year, but he graded out as not very well, and I think the league has told us what they thought of the season he had. The other guys like Bakhtiari, Charles Leno are contemplating retirement, and I think they would have made a move like that by now if they were going to do it.
Nick, yesterday you had an article today you put it out, but you have an article that you detailed. This is our next segment presented by New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood. You talked to Derek Carr, and he talked about how the load of this offense, simpler progressions are going to help the quarterback and lighten the load. Detail what you have in the article, not all the way, because if you want that, you have to go to NewOrleans.Football to get the full thing. And in general, now that we've reached week 1, do you think Derek Carr has a better start to the year in this system than he did in the last couple of years?
Well, I mean, I don't think we could sit around for 2 years and talk about how bad the offense was, and then they changed the offensive system to the system that's like the system that's preferred throughout the league right now, and not think that it's going to get better. Like just the offense and the play calling and how it's built and how it's put together should allow him more success. And there's been times throughout his career where he's been in good systems where he's been able to operate that system. And I think when you make Derek Carr the system, that's probably where it falls apart a little bit. And this system is kind of something that's supposed to help carry some of the load and make it a little bit easier on the quarterbacks and cut down on some of the stuff they have to do. I don't think it's ever been an issue for him to read a defense or anything like that, but it just cuts down on the checklist when you go out there and you can kind of go through your progressions in a more simple way, in a way that's, you know, supposed to make it a little bit easier on the quarterback so that you can be a little bit more instinctual. But I think it's I don't think you can say that like, hey, this offensive system was terrible last year and this new one isn't going to help the quarterback a little bit. Like, I think it is, and I think he should be able to run it, and I think he should have a better season than he did a year ago overall if they can block.
You have to take anything I say with a grain of salt because I genuinely believed that the Derek Carr was going to be a really good fit for the Pete Carmichael system. I mean, they told us a million times. I wrote a million times. Derek Carr kind of chose the Saints in part because Pete Carmichael lets the quarterback make a lot of reads and decisions for himself at the line of scrimmage. Derek Carr said he's always wanted that. Gruden let him do that, and he had his best. You know, like I bought the narrative last year that this was going to be a great fit for Carr, and he got off to a horribly slow start, you know, before he finally picked it up as the season went on, and they did some things to help him. I do think part of it, though, is, you know, the offensive line got off to a bad start protecting him. The run game got off to a bad start and put him in third and long positions a lot early in the season. So if this offense as a whole can get the best out of him, I mean, it's the offense that made Brock Purdy turn into an overnight sensation. C.J. Stroud, Jordan Love. It should help any Tua. It should help any quarterback. It should help Carr. And the things that quarterbacks do well in it, quick decisions, as you say, easier throws to guys like Olave. Yeah, get the ball quickly to Olave and let him do some work after the catch. I think they'll do that with Kamara. I think they'll do that with Shaheed. How can it not help him? I do think we'd be foolish not to expect an adjustment period. But, you know, as Carr said earlier this offseason, he's staying awake. He's like working late into the night. He's never been more exhausted trying to be like, how can I avoid that slow start? He's aware of his own history with that, and he's working really hard to prevent it. So you can't start much slower than they did last year. So, yeah, I do expect a faster start. But, you know, we have to go into it with both eyes open, too.
No doubt about it. I mean, he's been in the league for a long time. We know what Carr is. But, I mean, I think there were just obvious limitations and issues with the offense last year. Just one of the things I put in the story recently is that over the last 2 years, Chris Olave has been targeted on 12 passes in which he was on motion on the play. Like, he should get more than that just this year. Like, Tyreek's like in the 40s. It's just, you know, there's just stuff they weren't doing. The personnels were so static. The formations were so static. Like, yeah, great, go in a 3-by-1, but like have a little movement on it and then fool the defense a little bit. Get them to declare something. They just didn't do any of that. So, I mean, just adding some of that stuff is going to make it easier. It helps you see the defense. You don't have to read everything all the way across. I think some of the stuff you were talking about earlier with, like, them not being on the same page, I think some of that stuff was predicated on, like, the receiver and the quarterback, there's an option on it, and they got to read it the right way. Like, you take some of that stuff out, it takes out some of that. So it's just kind of bringing it down. And a lot of the heavy lifting is then put on the coaches instead of the quarterback, and the coach has to have the answers instead of the quarterback having the answers. And I think based on what we saw last year, that can only help. It can only help. He should be a little bit better in it. Is it enough? We're going to find out. I mean, nobody's saying that, but I think comparatively speaking, it should be better because we believe the system is better. And if the system isn't better, everybody's getting fired, and the next coach is going to pick his quarterback.
I thought it was really interesting when I was talking to Rick Dennison about the offense, too. He just, I think I said, what is it about this offense that really suits Derek Carr, or how that should have helped Derek Carr? And he just made a casual notation. He goes, well, he's just like Kirk in that he blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, you mean Kirk Cousins, who you coached in Minnesota, and Kirk Cousins had a monster year when he ran the system in there. And we've made that comparison a bunch, but it's interesting that like someone like Rick Dennison is like thinking of them in the same breath. I mean, what Cousins has done in Minnesota is realistic for an expectation. For
if Carr got to Cousins level, that'd be great. I'm not going there, but like if he becomes Kirk Cousins, like that's
that
a win.
That would be great.
That's a win. Yeah.
Excited to see how this new era kicks off, but as the end of what you said in your opening statement, if they can block, so
yep,
we'll have to see.
And if they can run, and everything else,
all of that. Now it's time for the Martin Wine and Spirits questions of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's, so much more than just wine. Today's first question comes from Noodles. Do you feel it would be better for Spencer Rattler to sit a couple of years to develop?
How Aaron Rodgers followed Brett Favre, how Jordan Love followed Aaron Rodgers, and is that the actual model? My answer is, I mean, yes, of course, that has worked well. But that doesn't mean that's how it has to work. I mean, Russell Wilson worked out okay when he got thrown into the fire right away. Dak Prescott worked out okay when he got thrown into the fire right away. Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco, the list goes on. That doesn't mean that's the way to do it. But, of course, if you're going to get your first look at a quarterback in year 3 instead of year 1, he'll probably look better then. That doesn't have to be the way, though. I mean, if something brings Spencer Rattler to start in October or to start in year 2, he could still have a great career. But, yeah, I mean, if you have that luxury, Pat Mahomes sat for a year. If you have that luxury, then they're even more ready to start when they do start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the best way to do it is to have a top 25 quarterback and then have somebody that can develop for a year and then they go in and they actually develop and they're ready to go in and you can push out your guy or your guy ages out or whatever. I mean, if you're drafting C.J. Stroud, you're picking second and it's because you don't have a top 25 quarterback and that's why you have that pick. Yeah. And he's got to go there. And then the other thing with this too is, the league's kind of shifted a little bit toward, the playing right away. If you have somebody that you invested in, a first-round pick, and you can actually, wait a year to play him, that usually means your coach has some type of job security. And if you're picking a quarterback in the first round, you usually don't have job security. So there's, a lot of variables here. But, finding somebody in the 5th round who you actually think can start, that doesn't happen. Finding Russell Wilson and actually thinking he can start, that doesn't usually happen. So there's really no one. It's what fits best. But, yeah, if you can have a top 25 QB, a coach with job security, and then use another first-round pick and let that guy sit for a year or two while you're waiting to get him in there behind your Hall of Fame quarterback, that is obviously the model that you want to have. But one team has done it. They've done it better than everybody. Yeah. They have a vision for it. But I think that's a good point. I do think if we saw Jordan Love early on, year 1, year 2 in his career, certainly probably would have struggled and not been who he is now. There's probably an element of the waiting, getting everything ready, being ready to go at that time that worked for him in that system. So this is all a long way to say I'm laying in the plane here. I think giving Spencer Rattler time to develop is the absolute best thing for him.
That's a really good point because I think being on the field, if Spencer Rattler, Jordan Love is an extreme example, starting year 4, that if Spencer Rattler got to start in year 2 and year 3, then he might be further developed by year 4 with all the experience he got. But the league might give up on him by then. Yeah. It's the lack of patience with these guys. It's better for the quarterback to, when you finally get your chance to make that first impression, Drew Brees' story in San Diego, does he have Sam Darnold's career today with the patience level we have now? Is he on his 4th team, after he doesn't hit? He got benched 3 times in San Diego before he finally hit. It's really interesting. But I also think it's interesting that I think everyone points to the Packers as the model. Rodgers behind Favre, now Love behind Rodgers. Mm-hmm. But as we were saying, I just thought of Tom Brady too. Mahomes sat for 1 year, started his 2nd year. Brady sat for 1 year, ended up starting in his 2nd year. So maybe that should be the model, the Mahomes-Brady model. They're probably the 2 best of all time.
They used to be the model. It's just kind of shifted. And I think there's a lot of merit to putting somebody in, letting them fail, find out what they're not good at, get better at it, improve and all that. But there is a risk factor of somebody's head getting messed up and stuff too. You can rattle somebody's confidence. Now, this gentleman we're talking about here, he got his ass kicked at South Carolina, got up after every sack, was fine. He went through a ton of adversity at Oklahoma, comes out of it, he's fine. He had the Netflix thing, he was fine. I don't think he's somebody that lacks in confidence or is going to have his head messed up. But I think there's stuff that he can get better at, and if you can allow him to do that, let him do it. It's just better, and I think it's better for the team, it's better for him, and he's just not better than Derek Carr right now. He's just not.
The next question comes from Chris Olave Stan. They ask, will this be one of the best Saints defenses we've seen under Dennis Allen?
No,
not one of the best because, we saw some, there's a reason he's head coach. The 2020? What was the one where they shut out Tom Brady? The second half of that season, I think they reached their absolute peak.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even 2017, 2018, 2019, these teams were winning 13 games, and the defense was leading the way. So that is a very tall bar being set. However, I think they started to fade a little at the end of the 2022 season, and I thought they took a full step back last year. I mean, there were games last year when Derek Carr started to get it together and the offense started to get together where the defense 6-7 weeks in a row were getting off to these horrible starts. Detroit, Minnesota, Atlanta. The defense was getting off to horrible starts and then trying to salvage it at the end of the game. So they've taken a step back, and I am pretty confident that they're going to be the best they've been, that there's a good chance they can be the best they've been in the Dennis Allen era. In his 3 years as head coach, I feel better about the defense right now than I've felt about it the last couple of years. I think they're going to take a bump back forward. I like what we've seen from them this summer.
Yeah, maybe as the head coach, for sure. But like their defense, and I don't know, they got a lock on it, and I don't have a subscription. I'm gonna get one, but like I'm guessing in like 17, 18, 19, like by DVOA, they were probably top 3 each one of those years. Last year, I think they were like 10th the last time I looked at it. So the best in the DA with the Saints, I don't think even close, but I think they'll be a good defense. But yeah, as him as head coach, definitely have a chance to be the best unit since over the last 3 years. But like you're talking about some like all time
heavy hitters. Yep. That'll do it for this edition of the NewOrleans.Football show. If you're already in here, stay in here because we have overtime today. And if you're not, make sure you sign up for the website, NewOrleans.Football /subscribe. Catch you next time.